excuse me.
He found him in the Kellogg's factory.
This looks insane, sticking your hand right inside of a bald eagle's mouth. Salthaven has become not just a bunch of volunteers working together, but it's become a community effort. Several weeks ago, we had a call from the manager of the cemetery, and he had indicated that there was a deer there that had a particular problem, given that his hooves were growing abnormally long and curled, and which wasn't allowing him to walk very well. In fact, when we went out to see the situation, we found that not only was he not walking very well, but he wasn't walking very far before he would lay down, and it looked painful to him. At that point, we decided we need to get involved and do something with this. Got in touch with Dr. Turl DeLangley, and we discussed the situation and discussed a bit of a strategy. We knew that we would need a farrier or somebody that could trim the hooves of this deer once we did get him. And so we put a bit of a team together in combination with a Salthaven team to assist, and we went out to the cemetery to take care of it.
He's sore, he's not able to get around as well because the toes are curling up, and he's sitting back on his feet, stretching the tendon, so it's uncomfortable in the feet, it's uncomfortable up the legs, it's uncomfortable in the muscles. So it's debilitating condition.
So he just never walked properly, and as such the hooves were kind of up. They never wore down, so they just kept growing and growing and became crossed. And now when he runs, he looks like he's wearing diving flippers. You know? It's just...
Yeah. Okay, and he can't get out of here?
Well, he can, but why would he leave?
True.
You know, it's safe.
That's why they're all here.
There's food. You know, it's almost a deer haven.
Yeah, look at them all.
Yeah, there's a few of them.
There's no babies on here though.
Oh, there is.
Oh, there is?
Oh yeah, there's fawns. We saw a few of them the other day. Yeah, in fact, smaller than the ones that are at Salthaven.
Smaller than Spike was even?
No.
No, his size?
Spike was pretty small.
He was dead.
So we put Dr. DeLangley in a vehicle that we had baited with food for the deer.
I was sitting in the passenger seat of the truck, and as they came up, I was able to see a buck and take a shot at him.
And the deer just came right to the back of the vehicle and started eating. It gave Dr. DeLangley a clear shot with the blowgun.
Just wait until he's feeling really relaxed right now.
I think we got to get one of those ones.
He's trying.
It took about 10 minutes for the anesthetic to take, and down he went.
Deer kind of hobbled around for maybe about 10 minutes, and then finally laid down, and we were able to get right at the hooves.
It's always a competitive environment when you're a wild animal, even in a park-like setting such as we're in. So they have basically two hooves, two toes, like a goat or a sheep. Those had overgrown considerably by 6 to 8 inches. And we're not sure why that happened. It can be a variety of causes, but whatever the cause, it was resulting in him being lame and reduced mobility.
He starts, I'm going to put this on him. He starts kicking, he is going to get somebody to that.
So the thing is, have to keep his shoulders pinned to the ground if he tries to get up.
You know, you look after the animal for about a year, you know, and you worry about him, you know, through the winter, and you try and help him. So this is a good day. I think that this is the only chance he's got. So I'm just glad Brian and Tyrell and everyone else here is just, you know, came to help. That's good people.
How long have you been doing this, Dan?
Oh, probably 20 years.
Worked on deer before?
No. No.
We weren't quite sure how this would turn out because he went from hooves that looked almost like Shriner's shoes to normal hooves.
He was able to do a good job trimming the feet. I was surprised. I was expecting to run into more problems, but he was able to take the feet back so that they look essentially, the hooves look essentially normal. Now it's a matter of seeing how he does over the next, once he wakes up and starts walking, then how does he do over the next few days, because the tendons will have been stretched out. So we'll see how he recovers from this.
Should take all blankets off except one after. Take them all off.
Good.
So that reverses the romping part. He'll still be sedated from the telazol, but it reverses the romping, which is the one that most heavily knocks him off his feet.
Yeah. How fast did they come out of that instead of?
After the injection, the romping's reversed in about 3 minutes.
Really?
Yeah. When you're sedating wildlife, there's a number of concerns. First off, you have to guess the weight. You don't have an accurate weight, so you're using fairly powerful drugs to knock them down quickly, but B, to try and knock them down for a short period of time, because the longer they lay that they're under, the more risk you have of impacting the digestive system, so it can cause some considerable problems.
Right. First deer. That's pretty good, I'd say.
You know, animals can't tell you what's wrong. It's that kind of that black box thing. You know, you kind of work on past experiences, and you're working in a situation where you're going to try something. If it doesn't work, you try something else. Usually we can get to the heart of the problem, but every now and then you have a problem that you don't know how to deal with it, and so you're working in this dark zone. So to have somebody with some extra special skills and training and experience and education in that area is very, very helpful.
What do you think, as far as the tendons are concerned, Terrell? Do you think
Well, they've been stretched, right? So the question is, how does he start to move with them already stretched out? So he may carry his feet well in front of him. So just have to see what happens.
Well, it took him a while to come out of the anesthetic, first of all, so he was kind of lumbering and rolling over and looked very intoxicated, which he was.
Yeah, when he gets up, he's going to be a little awkward. He could run in any direction.
I know.
I've been around sedated deer before. Oh my gosh, they can be really unpredictable.
I'll hide behind you.
Yeah. That's why I brought you. I wanted to help you.
But eventually he stood up, and much to our surprise, he stood up normally, right on the tips of the hooves, like he should. We had figured that tendons would be stretched and things would be a little abnormal for a while, but almost immediately it was evident that he was going to be okay.
I've always had an interest in working with wildlife. Before I finished vet school, I did what was called an externship at the zoo in Toronto, and the enjoyment of working with wildlife and exotic animals has stuck with me ever since.
Is that, as he grew, the toes would clack, yeah.
Yeah, that's
So you
really
hear
good.
him coming a long ways.
Dr. DeLangley is an amazing guy. I met him about 30 years ago, so we've known each other for quite a long time, and he's been very accommodating, especially given the workload that he has through the University of Western Ontario. But he's helped us whenever he can, and that's been really, really nice.
Well, this will give him a new start anyway, and hopefully those hooves will wear normally.
Working with Salthaven for me is a incredibly fulfilling way of being a veterinarian. We as humans do so much damage to the environment and the animals that live in it. So for me, it's a way to give back a little bit and address what we've done.
The funding for Salthaven comes from various sources. In about better than 90% of the cases, somebody who's bringing an animal to Salthaven will offer to help by way of a donation. It's, oftentimes it's not much, but we appreciate every penny we get. They're kind of sacred funds.
So did she see what happened? Was you just
It takes a lot in resources, time commitment, money for sure. We have about $100,000 operating budget that keeps things rolling here every year. Food, veterinarian costs, all of those things have to be taken into consideration when we're dealing with the financial side of Salthaven.
It's nice to know that we're helping people who really do care about the welfare of these animals they're dealing with. And we like the idea that animals who have been hurt, not always, but sometimes because of their interaction with man, that we're doing something to help those animals at least. We can't help the millions who are getting hit on the roads and suffering other problems at the hands of man, but we can do a little bit, and to us that's a very important thing to do.
Salthaven has had a number of just great supporters over the years. Oxford Dodge Chrysler, man, I mean, Jim Bennett phoned me up one day and said, "Brian, have you ever thought of a van for Salthaven?" And I said, "Jim, we'd love one, but it's just not in the budget." He said, No, we're going to donate one to you." I said, "Don't move, we'll be right there." That van has helped us so much in terms of rescue and transporting, and it's just been an amazing asset.
Well, we supply a van for them so that they can pick up and deliver their animals. And whenever they have a fundraiser, we definitely support that. Actually, my wife found a baby duck in the backyard, and we looked around someplace to take it so that it would be looked after. And from then on, we kind of supported him. We keep an eye on his wish list, and we supply quite a bit of that stuff, as much as we can.
Oh, man, that was a haul, eh?
yeah, totally.
Man, we've had it happen before where we'll do a presentation, and it may be a school in a neighborhood that isn't as well-to-do as otherwise it might be, and rather than having an honorarium fee, we just say, look, just whatever donations you can muster up. A couple times we come back with a van full of soap and paper towels and gloves and just you name it. It's just absolutely amazing.
That is a lot.
Bandages. I've never seen one of these before. How big is that?
That's your heaven. Okay.
I mean, we could degrease a dinosaur with that. We have a thing called the paper towel ferry. We have never run out of paper towels. We're down to our last roll, and somebody shows up with a big car full of paper towels that we go through. More paper towels. More paper towels. More paper towels. Gloves. We had a couple of young girls here that came out that actually took upon themselves a third-party fundraiser and brought in 62 boxes of examination gloves that are helping us to do the job that we do. We go through 8,000 gloves a year here at Salthaven, and these girls saw the need and just stepped up to the plate and showed up here with their mom one day and donated these gloves. I mean, you know, it restores my faith in humanity and really touches your heart, you know, that people really want to help in that way. We all have rough days, you know, like I love my work, but there's just too much of it a lot of the times. And, you know, there are times when you feel like, man, can I keep doing this? And then something like that happens and gives you that extra push that you need to make things go a little bit further. Okay.
Salthaven Wildlife Centre speaking.
We're maxed out at about 1,100 animals a year that we see as patients. And we know we could do more if we had a better facility. We just don't. Our landlords at Salthaven have been unbelievable, just amazing. Talk about donating. I mean, they bend over backwards to accommodate what we're trying to do here. But still in all, we need a larger facility. We get well over 6,000 phone calls a year for help, and we can only take in 1,100 animals. You figure on a busy day in the summertime, we're getting well over 100 calls a day now. Even 2 years ago, we were getting less than 50 calls a day. So it's expanding at an incredible rate, and we see down the road just a little piece that we're not going to be able to satisfy near a fraction of the need out there. So we're looking to expand, to find property that we can call a forever home for Salthaven, and we're hopeful that that's going to happen in the next 2 years. I think one of the toughest things we do here at Salthaven is the times when we realize an animal has to be euthanized, that they don't have a future. And those are really hard, especially when you've worked with that animal to give it a future and you realize in that awful moment that it really doesn't have one. It's part of wildlife rehabilitation. It's part of doing what's right, and realizing that it's a lot nicer death for that animal than what's waiting for them out there in the wild if they were out there on their own. We got a call from a concerned gentleman about a hawk that was down on his property, and we arrived, and the hawk had moved underneath a grove of pine trees, trying to get out of the sun because it was pretty hot that day. Let's see, very good, baby. As it turned out, it was a juvenile, fully fledged red tail, and had sustained some injuries that were pretty nasty. He had a really bad leg injury where the scales had actually just peeled right off in a big crusty piece, and flies had laid eggs in there, and he was just crawling with maggots. He had wing injuries in his wrists as well, where flies had also deposited eggs. The eggs had hatched, and they were literally eating him alive. Lost his wrist here. So he was in really bad shape, hurting, couldn't even stand up because of the leg injury. He was making himself mobile with his wings, kind of paddling on the ground with his wings. So it was a pretty bad state. So we brought him back here to Salthaven, and there was no question he had to be euthanized. We examine all the possibilities, first of all, to make sure that that the euthanasia is the last option. But we don't believe in allowing an animal to suffer either. So there's a lot of things to consider. Is this animal ever going to be releasable, number one? Number two, is the animal going to be in an incredible amount of pain between now and the time the healing process is done? And number three, do we have room for him? And if not, would he go to someplace else? And would this someplace else be willing to take a shot at getting him better given his circumstances?
You never want to see a bird die. Honestly, that's like one of the worst things here is see an animal die. Everyone in the clinic really gets like, there's an air of sadness when we do a euthanization. It's like death's in the air. You can feel it. It's a little bit, everyone's a little quieter.
After we euthanized him, we realized that the injuries were a lot more extensive than what we could even see initially. So it was a sad state. This guy he's got abrasions on this wing here, a lot of swelling and abrasions, and on the other wing, the wing is missing from the wrist on down. So it's, you can see maggots that are crawling here as well, right inside the follicles, fly eggs. We think that maybe this animal suffered some electrocution, and that's why he was in the state that he was in. Wrist damage and also extensive leg damage as well. It was so decrepit, though, it was really hard to tell. The back of the right leg has been, it's just all maggoty here. Euthanasia is probably one of the last options, but it's not necessarily a bad option. I think the Greek word for euthanasia is good death, and as sad as it is sometimes, I think the real sadness comes from the pain that animal's had to endure. They suffer pain in the same way we do. All too often that pain comes from us as humans. Every so often, when we're done with an apple, when we're driving, we throw the core out the window, never realizing that apple core can be a real danger to animals beside the road. That apple core might attract a mouse or a chipmunk, which attracts a larger predator like a hawk or an owl, which can lead to catastrophic events for that larger bird of prey. When you're done with your apple, throw the core in your compost. You'll be doing wildlife a favor. This is Brian Salt, helping you to keep the wild in wildlife.